Trish Thompson moved her gold clutch from the chair next to her to the table so that Brandon Bennet could sit down. This was the only empty table in a corner that she could find. She had had her fill of pleasant, though mundane, conversations, during which she was constantly on edge that she would say or do something wrong. That was the problem with church events. Even weddings. They were often attended by church people, and church people were some of the cruelest in her experience. They ranked just below family on her list of people not to trust. However, she was discovering that there were at least a few at the Hatfield Falls church who might just prove to be the sorts of Christians she had been taught about in Sunday school as a child. Brandon Bennet was one of those, as were the rest of his family, including the newest Bennet, as of an hour ago, who just happened to also be her friend and co-worker, Lacey. Brandon focused the lens of his camera on her. "You should wear that color, whatever it's called, more often." "Blue?" Trish pasted on what she hoped was a pretty smile and waited for the click. She and Brandon had become good friends quite easily after meeting at an apple orchard at Thanksgiving 2.5 months ago. "I know it's blue," he retorted. "I just don't know what particular shade of blue it is. I would say the shade is dark." Brandon lowered his camera. "You know, you could just say, 'I don't want my picture taken.' You don't have to become sarcastic. It's not the pictures." Trish leaned back in the chair and nursed her third goblet of cranberry punch. "It's weddings. Not just this one. All of them. I'm pretty sure Hollywood will be making a movie about me soon, with the number of bridesmaid dresses I seem to be collecting." Although it had been over 2 years since she had worn that last one, which also happened to be the last time any of her former friends had spoken to her. "You can't possibly have 27 of them yet." Brandon removed his camera from around his neck and placed it on the table next to Trish's clutch. "I think this one makes 10. Well, technically, they're not all bridesmaid dresses. Several of them are flower girl frocks." "How do you get asked to be in so many weddings?" "Why? Are you looking to collect bow ties and tuxedos?" "The tux is rented, and no. I'd like to know what not to do." He pulled at the piece of fabric tied in a barrel knot around his neck. "I'm glad Will didn't opt for a bow tie. Those things look dorky. This thing is less dorky." Trish laughed. She had to agree. Bow ties weren't her preference. "That thing is called a cravat." She thought he and his brothers all looked quite dapper in a cravat and tailcoat. Cravats also perfectly fit the Regency flair that Lacey, who loved all things Jane Austen, had going on with her wedding. "I call it a nuisance." His fumbling with that piece of dark blue silk was not producing the result Trish knew he was after. "There's a pin, Brandon. Here, let me help you undress." She glanced around and said that last part softly. They were, after all, in the fellowship hall of the church. Not everyone would find her humor funny, or appropriate. Brandon, however, simply smiled and leaned forward. "If you insist, but just the neck thing." "Cravat," she said with a giggle, "and I had no plans to take this any further." She shuddered. "Hey," he said, "I'm not hideous or something, am I?" Trish placed the tie pin on the table next to his camera. "You're a Bennet. Of course you're not hideous." His lips tipped up at a crooked angle, as they often did when he was pleased with something. "And you might be the prettiest of the lot," she added with a smirk. Pretty was a rather misplaced descriptor when it came to Brandon. He was ruggedly handsome with a constant shadow of a beard. Having to be trapped in formal wear was a challenge for him, but he had borne it well for his older brother's sake. "I'm not pretty," he grumbled. "I should say you're not." Henry Bennet pulled out a chair, turned it around, and straddling it, sat down. "I'm prettier than you," Brandon shot back. Trish shook her head. The Bennet brothers were handsome and true gentlemen when under the watchful eye of their mother, grandmother, father, or some other adult who expected them to be mature human beings. However, when they got together with just themselves and a few good friends, they often devolved into junior high boys. Jostling for supremacy in something or other was not an unusual pastime for them, even if that something was being the prettiest Bennet. "You're both very pretty," Trish assured them. "I dare say it would be hard for anyone to choose the prettiest. Unless, of course, you're Lacey. Then you're both losers." "But who would you pick?" Henry asked. Trish chuckled. "Not Will. And that is the only decision I'm going to make on the subject of best-looking Bennet. Especially since answering honestly would mean saying she thought Henry was the most attractive, even if she did not want him to be. This has been an excerpt from Don't Tell My Heart It Can Heal. written by Annilee Nelson, and read by Chrissy, a cloned voice made available for use by the voice actor, through the 11 Labs library.